When the criminal tortured me to death, I was 3 months pregnant, but my husband Mark, the city's most prominent detective, was at the hospital with his first love Emma, accompanying her for her medical checkup 3 days ago. He demanded me to donate my kidney to Emma. When I refused, telling him I was 2 months pregnant with our child, his eyes had turned cold. Stop lying, he had snarled. You're just being selfish. Trying to let Emma die. He pulled over on the dark highway. Get out, he ordered. Walk home since you're so heartless. I stood there in the darkness and was kidnapped by the vengeful criminal, whom Mark had once imprisoned. He cut out my tongue. With cruel satisfaction, he used my phone to call my husband. Mark's response was brief and cold. Whatever it is, Emma's medical checkup is more important. She needs me right now. The criminal let out a dark chuckle. Well, seems like the great detective values his ex's life more than his current wife's. When Mark arrived at the crime scene hours later, he was horrified by the brutality inflicted on the corpse. He angrily condemned the murderer for treating a pregnant woman so cruelly, but he didn't recognize that the mutilated body before him was his own wife. My body was discovered in an abandoned building. The construction worker vomited as he dialed emergency services. Mark rushed from Emma's kidney treatment to the crime scene. The forensic expert frowned, gesturing for them to put on masks. My husband Mark was the city's most renowned detective. He'd solved countless murder cases, yet even he faltered when he saw this corpse. The summer heat had done its work. The body was bloated, the face beaten beyond recognition, a mass of flesh and blood where features should have been. The injuries were extensive. The head barely hung onto the neck by a strip of skin. The stench of decomposition filled the air. Mark closed his eyes briefly, took a deep breath, and pulled on his gloves to begin the preliminary examination. I watched nervously as he removed the blood-stained necklace from my neck. 2 rings hung from the chain, our wedding rings that I had handcrafted for us with love. I remembered how proud I'd been, presenting them to Mark, days spent carefully making them perfect. But when Emma saw him wearing his, she had laughed cruelly. What is that ugly thing? Did you fish it out of a dumpster? Mark had ripped off the ring immediately, throwing it back at me. His face had burned with humiliation. You're my wife, he had snapped. You're supposed to help me succeed, not make me look ridiculous in front of others. Though his cold words still echoed in my ears, I believed surely he would recognize these rings now, these symbols of our marriage, of my love for him. But Mark just impassively instructed his assistant to bag them as evidence. His colleague worked methodically, then suddenly paused. Mark, the victim, was pregnant, about 2 months along. I watched, heartbreaking, as Mark's expression darkened with rage. These animals, he snarled, slamming his hand against the wall. How could they be so cruel to a pregnant woman? I wanted to scream, to shake him. Emma was diagnosed with kidney failure just 5 days ago. The doctors said she needed a transplant urgently. Mark had rushed to the hospital at midnight. On the way, he begged me, you have to help her, Alice. You're a match. You're the only match they've found. I'm pregnant, Mark, 2 months. That's why I can't donate my kidney to Emma. Please understand. His response had been instant and cruel. Another lie. First you refused to help Emma, now you make up a pregnancy. How low will you sink? He abandoned me on the highway and then I was kidnapped. Now he stood over my body, burning with righteous anger for an unknown victim, but he refused to believe his own wife's pregnancy. He just instructed his assistant to note it down as just another detail in the case file. Make sure to highlight the pregnancy in the report. This makes the case high priority. I shouldn't have hoped. I never existed in Mark's heart. He never believed me, never trusted me, not since the day we married. In Mark's heart, every word I spoke was a lie, every action suspicious. He saved his trust and love for Emma, even though I was his wife, even though I had loved him with everything I had. My friend Sarah had warned me from the start.